they may possibly have to evacuate. Ferries are standing by. I'm Mackey. Good to have you here with us at the Weather Network. If you have to leave your TV, well, good news. We are live streaming on digital and on your mobile devices as well. Just head to theweathernetwork.com/live. You know, when we look across the country, it's pretty hard to miss this. This is that Texas low that's going to be bringing us 4 days of rain and below seasonal weather in southern Ontario. And it's not just a story for southern Ontario, Quebec, Atlantic Canada. We are all going to feel the impacts of this. Current conditions in Toronto, check that out. A sad 7 degrees. That's about half of where we were yesterday for our daytime highs. And it doesn't appear like it's working on this graphic, but we do have a widespread rainfall warning in place from the city of Toronto through southwestern Ontario. Special weather statements in place for southern Quebec. We'll talk more about this in just a second, but let's take a look outside. Our very own Nitish is joining in from Woodbine. Now, the problem here, Nitish, it's not just the rain, but the wind, I would imagine, is picking up for you. Yeah, try and stay dry and warm out there, Nitish. I want to take a closer look at our satellite and radar. You'll see the rain is filling in for places like Ottawa, and through the overnight in Montreal, you'll begin to see the rain. It's not just the amount of rain that we're expecting, but it's the duration of rain and the fact that we already have a saturated ground from earlier this week. All of that rain. Localized flooding is a major concern, especially near rivers and in low-lying areas. Look at how slow this low is moving. We actually have an area of high pressure just anchored off of Atlantic Canada that is preventing this low from going anywhere fast. It's kind of like the bully. It's staying stay put. No way. So needless to say, Friday and into the weekend, it is not going to be pleasant, but the bulk of this rainfall forecast is falling through today and tomorrow, tapering off to showers for the weekend, and a wide swath of 50 to 75 millimeters not out of the question. But check out southwestern Ontario. We could easily exceed 100 millimeters of rain. Oh, and it's not just the rain. With cold temperatures, especially Saturday overnight through Sunday, we are expecting some light snow through parts of southern Ontario, especially the higher terrain just to the south of Georgian Bay and up towards Algonquin, North Bay as well. Rain is just one of the concerns here. I'm Mackey. Now, before we dive into our weather story, we have to take a look at some of our live webcams across the GTA, where commute times this evening have been doubled. And for me, it was actually triple. This is the system responsible. It's what we call a Texas low. Now, sometimes Texas lows will bring in some warmth, some subtropical heat. That is not the case here due to the track of this low. 7 degrees is where we're currently sitting for Toronto, and temperatures in southern Ontario will continue to drop over the coming days. A nice evening and day tomorrow for Atlantic Canada, but by Friday night, that same system is moving in for you. Widespread rainfall warnings blanket southern Ontario. This is because it's not just the amount of rain, the duration of the rain, but you couple those factors with the fact that we already have a saturated ground from all of the rain earlier this week. And yes, localized flooding is a huge concern. Let's check in now with Nitish. He is at Woodbine Beach. And Nitish, we saw the volleyball courts. Volleyball season is right around the corner. I would imagine this is not a good situation. Okay, thanks for the update, Nitish. Stay dry, stay warm. Toronto's likely to exceed its monthly rainfall average for May by Saturday alone. So no surprise we have the rainfall warning in place there, but we're also seeing those rainfall warnings extend into southern Quebec and some special weather statements as well. A closer look at our satellite and radar imagery shows us how widespread the rain has become and also how heavy it is. You can see that really dense green color. All day Friday will be a washout this weekend, tapering to showers, but it remains cool. When do things take a turn for the better? We will let you know in our next segment. Coming up, it's the Long Ranger, but first a look at the weather. The Long Ranger is coming up in just over a minute. I'm Mackey with a quick look at conditions across the country through the overnight. Clear and calm for now in Atlantic Canada. That will change for the Maritimes late Friday as this massive Texas low makes its way through. It's the same Texas low that's bringing us significant rain and also cold temperatures and also the potential of snow in southern Ontario through Friday and the weekend. But for now, as I mentioned, an okay setup in Atlantic Canada through the overnight, southern Quebec, getting into some of that rainfall and with a persistent easterly wind through the day tomorrow. You can imagine with that lake breeze, areas west of Lake Ontario going to be well below seasonal. Here's a look at how much rain we have in the forecast. This is significant on its own, but you couple this rainfall forecast with an already saturated ground from earlier this week, and yes, we have the potential for flooding. The ground has a reduced ability to absorb all of this moisture. Significant rain as well, especially for parts of western Quebec, 30 to 50 millimeters. This low is tracking a little bit further to the north. And then into next week, it's looking like temperatures will remain cool. I'll let Suzanne and Dr. Doug explain. About 2 centimeters an hour. I'm Michelle Mackey. Good to have you here with us at the Weather Network. In the west, we are calm and warm. It is a different story in the east. You're okay for now in Atlantic Canada. That changes for the Maritimes Friday evening. And we're already dealing with that terrible weather in Toronto, for example. And let's take a look at some of our live webcams across the region. You can see we do have that cloud cover building in now to southeastern Ontario, Ottawa getting pretty gray, and through the overnight, southern Quebec, we are going to see the heaviest rain. We are dealing with widespread rainfall warnings for a few reasons, not just the amount of rain or the duration of the rain, but the fact that we already have a saturated ground that has a reduced ability to absorb all of this rain. So yes, there is a real potential that we could be dealing with some localized flooding. And that is certainly the situation at Woodbine Beach, where we find our very own Nitish. And Nitish, one of the issues here is also the wind. And as of right now, water levels on Lake Ontario are the second highest that they've ever been. With more rain and those strong easterly winds, this is a huge problem for areas right along western Lake Ontario. So let's take a look at our satellite and radar imagery. You can see that heavy rain, and note that it sticks around through the overnight and into Friday. If you live in the GTA or anywhere along the Golden Horseshoe, that 401 corridor towards Kingston, expect to double your commute time for tomorrow morning and tomorrow evening. That rain is fairly persistent through the day, and for the first half of the day Saturday, it'll still be raining, but then we begin to see showers, but temperatures remain cool. Here's a look at how much rain we're expecting. Snow also a concern for some. We'll talk about that in our next segment. 6 minutes away. Right now, your local weather story begins. Yeah, this is a major concern right across southern Ontario, but especially for the 600 residents of the Toronto Islands. We are dealing with a possible evacuation situation through the overnight as the heaviest rain and strongest winds really begin to pick up. So what we're looking at, both the primary wind direction, it is onshore, and that means that for areas along the southern and eastern coast of the Toronto Islands, we are dealing with a bit of a surge off of the lake. Waves could be 1 to 2 meters. We could be dealing with some flooding, but the areas most at risk are in the eastern end, and we've already been seeing some sandbagging for the region. We'll keep you posted here on the Weather Network over the next couple of hours and let you know about the situation. Currently in Toronto, 7 degrees. It's cold, it's rainy, and now the winds are picking up. Let's check in with our very own Nitish at Woodbine Beach. Nitish, can you tell us about the situation out there, and are you managing to stay kind of dry? That's right. Rainfall warnings are widespread as well through southern Ontario into southern Quebec now, and pretty much all of southern Quebec under some sort of advisory, including special weather statements now for Montreal. That's where we're not getting necessarily rainfall warning criteria, but it's still going to be pretty heavy through the overnight and into your Friday. This is a long-lasting system, and as we look at our satellite and radar imagery, you can see that this is just the leading edge of that low. By tomorrow night, the Maritimes, you are going to be impacted by the same system. Heavy rain also a possibility for you. And we're also still dealing with those below seasonal temperatures. Friday, we won't even break the double digits in southern Ontario, but then this weekend we drop even more. So much so that through the overnight Saturday into Sunday, the potential is there for the Dundalk and Haliburton Highlands to be getting into a little bit of snow. I'll show you that in just a second, but first, 50 to 75 millimeters of rain. Widespread, most of that falling through today and tomorrow, and there's a look at where we're most likely to get into some of that snowfall. This system has the potential to be a significant spring flooding event. You heard Nathan talking about it. The advice is turn around, don't drown. We do not want anyone driving through flooded roads. I'm Michelle Mackey. Already special weather statements in place for all of New Brunswick and mainland Nova Scotia. That is where we are expecting the heaviest rain. Most of the day Friday is pretty good, but late day Friday, that's when we begin to see this moisture-laden low, a Texas low, first making its way through Ontario and Quebec, move in. And it's not necessarily the amount of rain that's a concern here. It's a lot, but it's how fast this rain is falling. We are expecting rainfall rates in New Brunswick specifically to be between 5 and 10 millimeters an hour, with a total of 100 millimeters possible, especially along the Bay of Fundy, places like St. John, especially at risk of some of that flooding. Meanwhile, in Quebec, Ontario, we are dealing with a similar situation. The only difference in southern Ontario and southern Quebec is that we already have a saturated ground thanks to a big system that went through earlier this week. Rainfall warnings are widespread through southern Ontario, Toronto, right through Barrie, Ottawa, Montreal, and a special weather statement right now. That could very well change. And by the way, the average monthly rainfall for May in the city of Toronto is 73 millimeters. We will likely exceed that by the time we get to Saturday. I'm Michelle Mackey. Our Storm Watch coverage continues here on the Weather Network on TV and online. TheWeatherNetwork.com/live is where you can watch us online or on your mobile devices. It's not just raining in southern Ontario, but it is cold as well. And those cool temperatures are sticking around as we head towards the weekend. This is a very slow-moving system. And when we look across southern Ontario, it's gray, heavy downpours in Toronto. And for Ottawa, the worst is yet to come. In fact, that's a sentiment that'll be shared right across southern Ontario. By the time we wake up tomorrow morning, the rain will begin to pond. We are expecting a very slow commute in, so keep that in mind. It might double your commute tomorrow for the GTA. And here's a look at that system. Widespread rain associated with this one, and then through the overnight, it's going to be moving in to parts of southern Quebec, and then Friday evening, that becomes a story for Atlantic Canada, specifically the Maritimes. So here's a look at the low pressure system responsible. With the track of this low, we get those strong wraparound easterly winds right off of Lake Ontario. And that's doing a couple of things. First of all, it's bringing us that cool lake breeze. That's why our temperatures aren't breaking the double digits. The second thing it's doing us, with already unusually high water levels, those waves through the evening and overnight could easily exceed 1 meter. That is a big concern for residents on Toronto Island. And let's check in with Nitish right now. He's joining in from Woodbine Beach. Nitish, it's getting dark, and I can see behind you there, those waves are really beginning to pick up. Oh, yeah, not the greatest news, not by any means. Let's take a look at how much rain we're expecting, not just for tomorrow, but right through the weekend as well. A wide swath of 50 to 75 millimeters is expected, locally higher amounts for parts of southwestern Ontario. By the time we get to Saturday night, it begins to ease, but Saturday night, temperatures cool enough for some areas in Ontario to be dealing with a few centimeters of snow, specifically the higher terrain. Not a good story, especially for the start of May. Right now, no matter where you live, here's a look at the weather outside your door. Our Storm Watch coverage continues in just a few minutes. That is likely not going to happen with all of the localized flooding that we're currently dealing with. I'm Michelle Mackey. Here's what's happening. This powerful Texas low has moved in. It's not just the amount of rain, but the duration of rain that we're expecting, 4 days of it, and also cool temperatures and very windy conditions. And as we take a look at some webcams right across the GTA, you can see that traffic has obviously improved because there's less people on the roads, but you can expect to double your commute to work tomorrow morning with all of the rain that we're expecting. It's going to be steady through the overnight into tomorrow morning. Widespread rainfall warnings are issued for a few reasons. Another one is that the ground is already saturated. It doesn't have the ability to absorb all of the rain that we're expecting. I want to check in now with Nitish. He's at Woodbine Beach. Now, Nitish, you've been out there for a couple of hours now. Can you describe to me how the conditions have changed from when you first started reporting? Yeah, that's right. And I should mention as well, now that it's dark, if you're doing any driving, especially along our major highways, keep in mind that rain has a nasty glare to it, so please slow down. We also now have those rainfall warnings in place for parts of southern Quebec. Montreal under a special weather statement. We don't necessarily meet the rainfall warning criteria, but you are not immune from it. Here's a look at the leading edge of that low that's moving in now. And because of the track of this low and the way air circulates around low pressure, counterclockwise, that's why we have that persistent easterly wind. And Lake Ontario right now only about 6 degrees. So yes, it is cooling our air mass. It sticks around, heavy rain through the day tomorrow, and then temperatures cool even more into the weekend. And for some, that means we have the potential for snow. We'll break that down for you coming up in our next segment. Yesterday, water levels in the region were rising by 2 centimeters an hour. And now more rain is in the forecast. I'm Michelle Mackey. Good to have you here with us at the Weather Network. Here's the system that's already moving into southern Ontario, bringing rain over a long period of time and really cool temperatures as well, well below where we should be for this time of year. By Friday night, this becomes a story in the Maritimes. Taking a look across the GTA, you can see that traffic has really slowed down, obviously. We are past the evening commute time, but give yourself about double the amount of time it would take you to get into work because rain is going to be torrential through the day. And keep in mind, major routes in and out of Hamilton are prone to flooding, especially tomorrow morning with that raw east-northeast wind and waves up to 2 meters high and water levels unusually high for this time of year. Rainfall warnings are widespread through southern Ontario, and I want to take you outside right now, checking in with our reporter Nitish at Woodbine Beach. Nitish, what are conditions going to be like through the overnight? I mean, when you went out there, conditions were bad, but not as bad as they are now.
Yeah, and you know what, Michelle, they're just going to get worse.
Yeah, that's right. And for many areas in southern Ontario, we are likely to exceed our monthly average rainfall amount for May by the time we get to Saturday. Also seeing some of those rainfall warnings in place through southern Quebec, including Gatineau, where we showed you right off the beginning. We'll have more Storm Watch coverage in just a few minutes. First, a look at the weather outside your door, your local forecast, plus our storm hunter, Mark Robinson, joins in for our next segment, talking about the situation on the Toronto Islands.